Hi, and welcome to another edition of Danny Brown Talks Phoenix. I am your host, Danny Brown, and today I am joined by Crystal Hollman of Crystal Clear Photography.
Hi.
How are you doing today, Crystal?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and, kind of your background?
Yeah, definitely. So I am a brand photographer, and I do content creation, helping business owners showcase themselves through lifestyle images, business portraits, and stock photography and product photos that they can utilize throughout their marketing and website and other materials to be more visually attractive to their audience. I've been in business for about 5 years now, and I came from the corporate world, good old HR and recruiting, and
as most of us do.
Right. And wanted an opportunity to be able to work for myself and have some more flexibility to my life and my schedule and my two girls. So I have two girls. One is 4 and one is 18 months. Oh my gosh. And and I am, of course, married to my amazing husband of 6 years almost.
Wow.
So I just, again, started my business to support other businesses. I kind of noticed a bit of a void in the industry at the time, because when I started doing my photography business, I wanted photos of myself on my website. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want just a traditional, corporate headshot, and I didn't want stock photos of other people because, how awkward would that be?
Yeah, right. Super awkward. Even the corporate headshots that people do are super boring for the most part.
Yes, they are. They had no personality. It was just uneventful. And I was like, this is not why I started my business. I wanted it to be something fun and inviting and, showcase me and my personality. And so I kind of noticed I had a hard time finding photographers that did that. There was the, occasional wedding photographer or family photographer who didn't mind shooting the photos, but they just didn't really specialize in it. So they didn't understand why I wanted the photos to be mainly horizontal, because I needed to be able to have more room and more space to manipulate or crop or add text and things like that. So I just kind of noticed that was an immediate thing in the industry and started kind of gravitating towards supporting other business owners and realizing that this was something that needed to be out there, especially for the businesses here in Phoenix, and I just wasn't finding that. Yeah,
it's a huge void. Everything that we're doing now is so visual. With social media, the internet, and you need to have a presence out there, and most people don't have the ability to do it themselves.
Yeah.
So how did you decide to go into this as a career path?
So I decided because I, A, was realizing that there was that void, and I, B, had realized that it was something I was passionate about doing. I always liked capturing people, but I liked capturing the fun moments of people like really, truly laughing and enjoying themselves, which
Those
I think is
candid moments.
Yeah, candid moments, exactly. The things that I think people now are thriving and really, really wanting to see more out of the people that they're working with. They want to know your personality, and so I just took that direction and was like, you know what? I don't see this out there, so I'm just going to start doing that. So that became my main focus, was identifying the profile of a business owner, and what kinds of things do we need, what did we need out of our photos, how was I going to be using the photos, and kind of constructing sessions and shoots and things like that around the things that I saw that were missing, and just targeting specifically people who owned their own business and needed to be able to have it in a more of affordable package where they weren't hiring a commercial photographer for $5,000 or $10,000 a shoot, but something that they could get that was more reasonable and obtainable, $300-$500 a shoot, giving them quality images they could use, helping them bring out their personality and kind of feel a little bit more authentic and showcasing who they are and what they do.
So how do you go about then learning because it sounds like with most photographers, at least based on my experiences, that you just tell them you need photos and then they either show up or you go to their studio. It sounds like you do a lot more. That you get to know the business, you get to know the people who are in the business and how to properly portray who they are through photos. How do you do that?
Yeah, so I've got a process, which I feel like, everything process-wise is constantly improving.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you have to have processes,
say,
and you have to be always improving them.
Right. It's definitely changed a bit. But what I typically do now is I require a consult with the people that I'm working with, whether it's just a quick over-the-phone call, because I think it's important important that we have a connection when it comes to personality and styles and things like that, because I may not be the right fit for every business. So I take an opportunity to kind of get on the phone with them, get to know them, get to know what their vision is, you know, what kinds of things are they working on, how are they going to be utilizing these photos in the next couple of months, and you know, really seeing, have they put a lot of thought into what they're looking for? Do they know their own brand already? Have they identified their ideal client and what that client's going to be perceptive to? Things like that are going to help them develop their photo shoot and make sure that they're getting the most out of their images, that I'm shooting the things that they're going to need, and then I help them from a styling aspect. So if they, you know, they do want to stage an office, or you know, have some things like that set up because maybe their home office isn't exactly ideal for photos. You know, the things like that. I'm sure if you looked at my home office, you'd be like, ooh. Yeah, right. So you know, just kind of helping them decide, you know, do we need to put a little bit more into this than it just being a picture of you, and kind of helping them uncover and develop that. And so I really take pride in that part of the process. And I have, you know, a couple of questionnaires to help them identify their brand if they're not too sure, or if it's brand new. And then for those who already know it, it's just more of kind of solidifying what are going to be our, you know, variances in the photo shoot. How many setups are we going to have, and things like that, to make sure we're really effective.
So it sounds like you're more than a photographer. You're kind of a creative director, for lack of a better term.
Hey, I'll take that. I'll take that title.
You kind of help if someone doesn't know their brand and doesn't know who they are. Do you have a process to help them kind of discover that, to help in the photography process?
Definitely. So a lot of times I do get some business owners who have come to me and they're just kind of starting out. They're a little nervous. They know they need to get some photos just to kind of get the ball rolling. So I have a questionnaire, and then I utilize that consult process to help them kind of talk through it. I also now recently started offering more strategy sessions for people so that we could identify that. So I have a couple of clients that I'm working with, and we do calls like every other week to just kind of help them work on strategy and making sure that they understand their brand, and identifying what they want their brand to look like, and is that going to radiate with their audience, and how then they could take that and put it into their photos, whether it's their stock photos or the brand photos that we do of them in person. So I do have a process in place to kind of help them identify and kind of narrow that down a bit. I'm not a full, obviously, brand suite or anything of that nature, but I'm definitely, you know, want to be helpful to the clients and help point them in the right direction, and even give them some additional resources beyond that should they need it for, you know, websites and things like that.
You're more than just a photographer. You're helping people kind of help discover who they are as well.
Yeah. Yep. I do that a lot. I you know, and I really love it. I love getting a chance to pull out people's personalities. I think that's the funny part, is everyone always gets kind of nervous, or, you know, they're like, oh God, you know, I don't want to show up and have like these horrible stiff photos of myself and not feel relaxed and comfortable. And I know I've worked with your team before, and I poke fun at people. I'm like, let me poke fun at you. You know, you're standing there and you're being obviously very serious, and you know, relax, move around, talk, you know, talk through the shoot. You want some of those candid photos of you kind of laughing, and maybe not the cackling moment. We'll kind of take a couple of steps back to the the moment right before you really get the laugh going. But just really helping people kind of step into their own is something I really love doing.
So when a potential client comes to you, what you say you have a questionnaire that you have them fill out. What are some of the questions that you ask to go through that discovery process?
Yeah, so just to kind of start, I ask them some basic things like, do they understand like what their brand colors are? Do they understand whether or not their client base is more professional? Are they more casual? Is it the mom that works from home, you know, or the stay-at-home mom that, you know, just focuses on her kids? And kind of just understanding those types of things help me understand how they should probably portray themselves in their photo to make sure that they're relating to the people that they're working with. So we go through some basic questions like that. We go through things like what they don't like, because everyone knows they have some things they don't care for.
Sure.
I do. I have those things about.
Everybody's self-conscious.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's the self-conscious things. You know, for me it's angles, and for a lot of women it's angles. So you know, just kind of identifying, you know, the insecurities and things like that, so I can help people overcome those during the photo shoot, because that will be important to them. You know, relaxing, and then again carrying that authentic presence through their images.
It's amazing that you can capture all of that through a photo, that you can tell when somebody's uncomfortable or feels awkward in a situation. And it's just a single moment captured in time, but you can absolutely tell if they feel uncomfortable in that moment. So it's great that you're able to kind of pull that out of people and have them feel comfortable and capture those candid moments.
Yep. And those are the parts that are important. I think it's, I get people talking in conversation and I'll snap a whole bunch of photos and they think that, nothing turned out from their shoot, and they come back to see all of these photos that I've caught in these candid moments of them laughing in the midst of our conversation, or, just the smile that they get right when you come down from the huge cackling laugh that you usually have.
Right.
And, it's capturing that moment like right afterwards. That's kind of that authentic smile. People are like, oh my God, that actually does look really good. So it's funny to see their reaction to it thereafter.
And you also specialize in helping people set up stock photos as well. Is that correct?
Yep. That is correct. So I do stock and flat lay photography, and I also do product photography styled within that as well. So the service-based businesses will typically use just stock photos, and a lot of times people will go out to websites and they'll find free stock photos that are out there. I mean, there's tons of shops that do it. There's tons of even photography shops that do. But what I found was that a lot of people are struggling because they may not necessarily have the budget, or they're not finding the right kind of stock photos that fit their brand. It's great that we get an opportunity as entrepreneurs to be so unique, but because of that, we don't find ourselves fitting in the cookie cutter, stock photos that are out there. So
I imagine it would probably take a lot of time to sift through all the photos.
Oh yeah,
as well, just to find.
I mean, you'd probably be spending just hours trying to find some that are gonna maybe work, or maybe if you just add the right color font to tie in your brand a little bit, you can make it work. And so I started wanting to educate business owners on how they could take better photos themselves with just their phone or basic camera, and kind of started off supporting businesses. And then I bloomed into creating a workshop last year to really help the business owners from a hands-on perspective. So I'm a hands-on learner, and most people who own a business typically are. So I created this workshop to be kind of part informational and then part helping them actually style and shoot things in the workshop that they could walk away with, or at least being able to walk away with the aha moment of, that's why my stock photos aren't working when I try to do it myself.
So this is helping people take their own photos.
Yep. So this is helping people take their own photos, and it's hoping them get to a point where they feel a little bit more confident trying to shoot something visually, because not everyone starts off with a budget to be able to hire for stock photos and product photos, because those can be a little bit more expensive. So it's kind of helping them take their phone and be able to strategically plan out a nice photo. As a lot of times people don't realize there's a lot of thought and there's a deep process that goes into actually doing it. Unfortunately, you can't just go grab a bunch of random items, style them all together, and everything just work out perfectly. Sometimes that can happen, but very often, more often than not, it doesn't.
Take some thought and planning.
Yeah. So it's kind of, showing them from a photographer's standpoint that does this continually, what that process looks like and how they can kind of break it down to start training themselves to think the same way and put a little bit more thought into what they're trying to shoot, so that their photos come out better until they get to a point where they can then hire someone like myself to do it for them, and kind of take on that part of their business.
So are you giving out this information for free, or to do your workshops? Is there some sort of cost to do that?
There is. So there's a $150 investment, which is pretty decent, especially for those
low,
for those who are starting out. And the workshop's typically about 3 hours. Kind of varies a little bit depending on the skill level of everyone in the class. I keep it limited to about 8 people, and it gives me an opportunity to work with everyone individually as well as working with everyone as a group, to answer questions. And
that's smart.
Yeah, we kind of tackle all kinds of things that come up, but it's been really fun to work with a lot of people that way. And
you've mentioned several times just using your phone, so you don't have to have any high-end expensive equipment to be able to do some of these things?
Nope. You can have, one of the latest, I would say latest, of course, because those the phones typically have good cameras if it's been within the last couple of years. I personally use an iPhone 7 Plus, which is now, oh my gosh,
that's like four generations ago.
It was like 4 generations
and next
ago,
week it'll probably be 5.
Right. It's like another month and my phone's going to stop working. But yeah, and so mine's just a 7 Plus, and I still shoot a few things here and there with my phone to just be able to upload content a lot quicker. So I teach both ways, and a lot of people come in with typically both items. They're like, hey, I've got this camera that my husband bought me, and then I've got my phone. So yeah, as long as you've got, a pretty decent iPhone or Android, you can come in and be able to shoot some good photos with just your phone. Some
of those more expensive cameras have so many features on it that I think your average person probably doesn't even need to spend.
Right. Unless you plan on continuing to try to do your own photography professionally and really advance your skills, take an opportunity to do a lot of the training and learning your camera, it's really probably not going to be worth the investment. A lot of people end up shooting on auto, which doesn't give you a lot of range in terms of editing and depth with lighting and colors and things like that we photographers play with a lot.
You don't have Snapchat or Instagram filters.
Right. Well, and people want the instant gratification, the ability to be able to take it, upload it right away. So then you're trying to get it onto your computer, you're trying to convert it, you're trying to do all these things to get it ready to be able to upload. Whereas as a business owner, if it's not your everyday thing, you can quickly shoot some things and be able to use your iPhone, and people are wowed by that factor when they come into the workshop and realize that they can just use their phone, make a couple of tweaks, and be able to upload it right away that day.
What are some, we don't have the ability to do that, the visual stuff, but what are some basic tweaks that people could do to maybe take their photos from super average and vanilla to maybe just a half step or a step better? Using their phone.
So a couple of quick steps would be your lighting is typically one of the most common issues. Using natural light, but using natural light in the shade. So going out into the sun, into the sunny part of your yard is probably not a good idea. Using filtered light. So taking like a curtain, and just even if you're not like actually hanging curtains, but just having a curtain you can hang up, like something that's maybe linen or cloth that you can just hang up over the window, you can diffuse light. So maybe you have a great window that you can shoot some stuff, but you're getting a lot of harsh light coming in. Using something like that to diffuse the light will help you from that perspective. And you'll find you'll get an even kilt, you'll have softer shadows. It makes it easier to snap with your phone real quick and not have to do a lot of edit. If you're going to edit on your phone, I would recommend using Snapseed. It's probably the next best thing.
Is that an app?
Yeah, it's an app. So Snapseed is an app you can download on Android and iOS, and you can use it. It's probably the closest thing to using something like Lightroom or Photoshop from a professional standpoint, because you can actually make quite a few tweaks and things like that to it. So if you aren't a professional, you don't deal with Adobe, Snapseed is the best thing to learn. And that way you can go in there and be able to make a few adjustments. But typically the things that I adjust are brightness, shadows. I always soften the shadows, adjust the brightness a bit. I shoot brighter. So for me, I always want my images to be really bright and light. And then I adjust the contrast and sometimes the warmth of the photo, because if I'm shooting on a cooler day where it's a lot cloudier, but I want the image to have a little bit of warmth to it, I'll make that adjustment as well. And so those are just some of the key things that that you can do. So just a couple of tweaks, diffusing your light, and making sure that you're shooting in the shade should you try to go outside to shoot everything.
What if you're just shooting your dinner on Instagram?
If you're just shooting your dinner on Instagram, it's the same concept. Push your table over to the window to get some of that nice light, or if you happen to be outside on a patio, just make sure that you're right outside of where the sun and the shadow meet, essentially. So right on that line.
Do you have advice for the husbands out there who are taking pictures of their wives, girlfriends, or wannabe girlfriends who are Instagram models?
Well, I could just tell them to make sure that she is facing the light and your back is to the sun. That way you're getting the most well-lit images you could possibly get for her. Good.
Hopefully that saves everybody some time.
Yeah, right? My husband's like, nope, I can just hear him right now going, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, me either. I'm not going to take more than just a handful of photos.
I think Instagram husbands is a whole other special group of men that are out there.
That is a niche that needs to be filled.
Yes, props to them.
So you are a big proponent of something called Mom Boss, Mompreneur.
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm just a big advocate of trying to be transparent as a mom boss. I have a blog that I started 2 years ago and focused just specifically on my journey as being a mom and a business owner, because it does take a special breed of person.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Being able to balance all of that, plus run a household, be a good wife, be a good mom.
Yep.
Run a business successfully. It's got to be a lot to manage.
Yep, definitely. It is. And I've got 2 of them now. So I just wanted to kind of go through and be able to share my journey, talk about different tips and things that, I've found finding balance, feeling like you don't have to give up on your daydream just because, being a mom is priority and, can be overwhelming quite a bit. So kind of setting boundaries and foundation for your clients as well as yourself to make sure that you and your family are happy
Sure.
and that you're able to continue having the business and the career that you want to have.
But getting out of the 9 to 5 grind and being an entrepreneur probably affords you more time to be with your kids and kind of prioritize that way.
It does.
Yeah.
Yep, it does. And it allows you to determine what you want your work hours to be. So some of the mom bosses that I've worked with before, and even myself, will typically work certain hours during the day, usually when our kids are napping. Mm-hmm. We take, opportunity to optimize that time, and then we get them settled, and we'll work again a little bit in the evening. And then there are some business owners who have it structured where when their kids are in school, they're able to, work while the kids are in school. So I think it's just really defining those hours, what's going to work for you and your family, where you guys are at that point, and communicating that. I think people feel like, oh, I can't communicate that, or I'm going to lose business. But when you set expectations for the people that you're working with, they respect those boundaries and they will work around that should they want to work with you. And if they don't, then maybe they're not the right fit at that
Sure.
moment. And that's something else that you kind of got to learn to let go of.
I'm definitely not a mom, but the part about prioritizing and setting boundaries with your clients, I can definitely relate to, because I have clients who will text, call, and they expect me to respond at 9, 10 o'clock at night. And it's like, no, I'm done. I'm down. Like, this is my time to relax and chill out, and you can wait until tomorrow morning.
Yep. I actually have an upcoming blog just talking about that and communication. It's like those communication boundaries and setting even those types of expectations that, like, hey, you know what, I'm going to answer emails between this time and this time, or actually I prefer to not, take questions through text message if you don't mind, if you'd shoot me an email, that way I can make sure I respond back to you more timely. Sure. Things like that work for you. I stopped doing messages through social media because it's overwhelming because of all of the platforms by itself.
I know, right?
But just trying to keep track of it and making sure that I didn't forget to follow up with someone, because as a mom, your brain's in like 1,000 different places. So, keeping track of your business, I have to kind of keep my communication to one platform, and email is usually what works for me in that case.
Sure.
So I try to limit it to that window so that it doesn't get out of control.
That's really smart that you're able to do that and have figured out to do that when your business is so young.
Yeah.
To set those guidelines and those expectations early.
Yeah. Well, because I know if I want to continue to grow and be able to help people, it's got to have a little bit of, control and some structure, or things are going to go haywire. So
your mom boss, is that a community of other entrepreneurs who are also mothers, kind of helping each other out to, run successful businesses as well as be successful in your home life?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of we're like an unofficial community. It's just, a network of people that I've had that have followed me, that I've worked with, that I've known, and we all just, band together to support each other. And there's a lot of cool collective, actual in-person groups and things like that I've met a lot of the ladies that I support and work with. So yeah, I would say getting out into the community and checking out some groups like the Motherhood Collective and the West Valley and a few of the other groups that they have is how I've met a lot of these ladies.
That's really fantastic. I think it's great that you guys can all share in that and share in your experience. And I think it's really cool that you're kind of documenting your process, because I imagine that there's a lot of people out there, specifically moms, who probably want to break away from the grind but are afraid to, and how to kind of balance it all.
Yep. And I even talked specifically about being overwhelmed last week on my blog, because it was just, I feel like that's one thing you tackle. Just, just as an individual alone, it can be easy to get overwhelmed when you're owning your own business and running multiple different things. But adding in then the balance of being a mom, I talked about being overwhelmed and just some of the things that I try to do to help me tackle that. So for me, it's just getting an opportunity to be informative. It doesn't mean that my way will work for everyone.
Sure.
Just kind of, opening their eyes and showing them that it can be done. I do face the same, difficulties that they're facing. And, here's kind of how I go about trying to tackle that and handle it on a day-to-day basis.
I think in this day and age where everybody's, they have their social media or their online persona, and then there's their real life. And I think people are craving and thirsty for real, honest people. And the fact that you're doing that and being, transparent and vulnerable in your journey is, I think that's great.
Yep. I even, went as far as including some things about my kids, because last year my daughter was diagnosed with Wilms tumor, and when she was going through her battle through cancer, we kind of, I put that out there through my blog, and it wasn't so much that I wanted to divulge a bunch of personal information, but it was just giving an opportunity to maybe touch somebody else.
Sure.
As I had been, I actually found another mom who was here locally who was running her business, and she had her daughter who was going through cancer at the same time at Phoenix Children's as well. And I saw that she was kind of putting it out there and just talking about it. And for her, it was a relief because she got a chance to get it off of her chest and process it herself. But then she also helped someone like me that she didn't even know she helped until I reached out to her and was like, thanks for sharing that, because it makes me feel like I'm not alone. So I think it's just, we as moms and business owners are a community out there, whether we're, making an intentional, physical connection or just getting an opportunity to, be able to talk to each other or put content out there that we can all relate to and be able to support one another and show each other that everybody can make it through even the most difficult of things.
I think that's one of the beautiful things of the internet and social media. We're going through right now where the internet and social media is evil, and there's fake this and fake that. But the fact that, you were going through something and found someone who was going through the exact same thing. And, in a world with billions of people, no matter how rare what you're going through is, the fact that you have this really simple and easy way to communicate with people all across the world. There's got to be, a handful of people that are also going through that.
Yep.
Where you can share that experience and like you said, not feel alone.
Yep. You get an opportunity, I think, to make a connection that we wouldn't have otherwise made at one point, just because we get a chance to put that information out there. And like you said, find that, handful of people that are going through the same thing that at that moment can relate and make you feel like, okay, there is some sense of normality to what's going on in my chaos.
Yeah. Well, you're doing great stuff. You're putting out a lot of fantastic content.
Thank you.
I really enjoy watching it. I think, your Instagram stories are super informative, and I just keep it up. I mean, keep doing what you're doing. So I have a couple of fact or fiction questions, some kind of rapid fire things that I thought I'd ask you about photography.
Yeah.
Does someone need to learn anything, or will the camera do it all for you these days?
I think that's a difficult one to answer. No, I definitely think there's going to be a lot of skill to it. Regardless of whether you're using your phone, that's why you see people that take these amazing photos with their phone. It is, learning and trial and error and, finding the tutorial videos and things like that. There is a lot of skill behind it. So don't, discredit the photographer because it feels like, oh, I can just point and click with my phone. While that might be easy, there is a lot more that goes to it, as you can see with my own process.
Absolutely. Having a better camera will make you a better photographer.
No. You ask some of my workshop attendees. They come in and they've got these stellar cameras that, they've gone and invested in and spent thousands of dollars on. And they come in and they're like, I have no idea how to use this. I'd rather just use my phone, because
right.
they try to point and click and they're like, but it doesn't come out the way yours does. Because there's a whole process and there's more to it. So I would definitely say it's going to be way more than just buying a fancy camera.
Yeah, you should probably start like baby steps.
Yep.
And if you really get into it and have a passion for photography, then maybe invest the thousands of dollars.
Yep. And there's the, University of Google, if all else fails.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can find anything on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah. What is your advice for people on cloudy or rainy days?
Cloudy or rainy days, unfortunately, you could try to use some studio light, but typically what I do is I just let my clients know that we'll probably have to reschedule the shoot if you're a natural light photographer. You can use studio lighting, but a lot of times it can be difficult. It's something people don't readily have available. So I would just plan on trying to reshoot on a day that you aren't facing that.
What if you're just a normal individual and you have an event to go to and you just can't reschedule? What do you do in those kind of instances? What can you do with the settings to kind of make up for the lack of natural light?
Yeah, you'd probably want to end up using a flash. For those of us who have a camera, we typically have of course I'm having a complete brain fart. We have usually I have a large flash that we have on top of our camera, and we usually have a diffuser that we put on it to soften the light. But a lot of times, like you said, if you're a normal individual and that's not the case, you're probably going to have to bring out your flash, or just try to target yourself towards the sun. If it's a cloudy day and you're getting a little bit of peaks of sun here and there, try to bring yourself out of the area that you're in and try to get a little bit more natural light. Open up the windows if that's possible, to allow as much light to flood in as possible. And of course, the nice part with our phones is you can tap to touch the darkest part on your photo, and it will auto adjust and lighten up the picture. So a lot of people don't take advantage of doing that.
I didn't know that. I always tap people's faces.
So you can tap their face, which, that's great. If their face is dark, it would work in that case. But you can actually tap and adjust. So if you just go and pull up your camera on your phone and just tap a couple of different places, you'll see that your camera will automatically adjust on your phone to the lighting. So that's like a nice little fancy thing that you don't get on your camera. You got to be a lot more technical about it. But on your phone, just tapping a couple of spaces on there to see like what's going to be the best lighting, and it will automatically adjust for you.
I had no idea you could do that. I learned something today. So to kind of wrap up, what is one thing that you wish you knew when you started taking photos?
One thing I wish I knew when I started taking photos would probably be that it pays to invest in the education first versus just trying to think you know all of it and going and doing it.
That's great advice. Absolutely. I think that is good advice for anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's one of those things, people dismiss the photography class you took in high school, and that's that may have been okay then because that wasn't your career. But if you're really serious about having good images and wanting to improve, having that continual education, any photographer, whether they've been in the business for 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, will tell you that education and constantly keeping up with the latest techniques is going to be where it's at.
And what advice do you have for people who are looking to be a mom boss?
For those who are looking to be a mom boss, give yourself some grace for sure. Create structure and boundaries when it comes to communication and your work hours, and set those expectations for the people that you're working with.
That's great. That's really great advice. So if anyone listening has any questions or wants to get in contact with you, how do they reach you?
Yeah, so obviously I'm across all of the social media platforms. Pinterest and Instagram are probably my two biggest.
I would think so. That makes sense.
Of course, you can always email me at info@crystalclearphotographyaz.com.
Well, thank you so much, Crystal, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
This has been another episode of Danny Brown Talks Phoenix, and we will see you next time.